The moment you disappear, one of them will start to fear, and the other one will start to respect you. Here's the dangerous part. You don't do anything. You don't explain. You don't announce I'm going to disappear, but your position shifts in their head. The problem is, you never know which side you're on. If you've ever felt like you're still the same person but they treat you differently, stay for a few minutes. And if this topic touches something you're going through right now, a like or a comment with 30 helps this video reach the people who need to hear it. Let me tell you something about the world we live in. It doesn't run on feelings, it runs on invisible assessments. Every single day, people around you are making calculations about who you are and what you're worth to them. The person who's always there gets labeled as easy to use. The person who always responds gets labeled as having no options. The person who never pulls back has no leverage. And here's the cold part. There's no notification when your status drops. You just feel it. The air changes around you, and suddenly you're being treated differently without understanding why. Most people believe they need to show up consistently to maintain connections, that if they disappear, they'll be forgotten, that presence equals value. But here's what actually happens in reality. Presence doesn't equal value. Constant presence equals familiarity, and familiarity equals being overlooked. You're not dismissed because you're bad at what you do, or because you're unlikable. You're dismissed because you're too accessible, because you've made yourself so available that people have stopped seeing you as a choice and started seeing you as a given. In every society throughout history, value has never come from giving. It comes from the ability to withdraw without asking permission. So here's the core rule, the one thing I need you to remember. Power comes from the ability to pull back, not from trying to be kept around. Now, when you disappear for 30 days, 3 distinct psychological phases happen in the people around you, and most people completely misunderstand what's going on in each phase. Phase 1 is relief. In the first few days after you're gone, the people around you tell themselves they're probably just busy, or it's fine, I'll hear from them soon. This is the reassurance mechanism kicking in. Their brain is telling them a story that keeps them comfortable. They don't feel your absence as a loss yet. They feel it as a break from routine. Listen carefully, because this is where everyone gets it wrong. This phase isn't about them missing you. It's about them not having to think about you. And that neutrality, that sense of everything's fine, is actually the seed of everything that comes next, because you're beginning to slip out of their daily awareness without them even realizing it. Phase 2 is unease, and it starts sometime in the 2nd or 3rd week, when you've been gone long enough that something shifts in their perception. You're no longer confirming their reality. You're not responding to their messages. You're not making them feel secure in their position. The human brain hates information gaps, and when you were always there, they knew where you stood. They knew your patterns. They knew how to predict you. Now they don't, and that uncertainty creates something they haven't felt in a while: discomfort. If you've ever felt bothered by someone's silence, if you've ever caught yourself checking your phone repeatedly, waiting for a response from someone who used to always respond, then you already understand how power operates. That discomfort isn't about missing the person, it's about missing the certainty they provided. Phase 3 is repositioning, and this is where it gets really interesting. By week 3 or 4, they start asking different questions. Why don't they need me? Do they have better options? Did I do something wrong? Have they moved on to something better? Here's what's wild about this phase. You haven't changed. You're the same person you were 30 days ago, but the way they rank you in their mind has completely shifted. You're no longer the person who's always available. You're now the person who chooses when to be available. And that simple shift flips the entire dynamic, from them having power over your attention to you having power over theirs. Let me give you 2 real situations so you can see exactly how this plays out in everyday life. Situation 1 is work. The old version of you always said yes to every request, always took on extra tasks even when you were overloaded, always responded to emails and messages within minutes, no matter what time of day. You made yourself available because you thought that's how you proved your value, that's how you showed you were a team player, that's how you earned respect. Then you disappear. You go silent. Not out of spite, not to manipulate anyone, but because you've decided your presence has a price, and you're no longer giving it away for free. 30 days later, when you come back, watch what happens. They start asking for your opinion before making decisions. They respect your time and actually check your schedule before dumping work on you. They choose their words more carefully when they approach you. The work didn't change. Your skill level didn't change. What changed was their perception of your accessibility. Let me walk you through a specific example of how this looks. Before your disappearance, your manager would send you a message at 9 p.m. saying, "Hey, can you handle this real quick?" There's no question mark about your availability, no consideration of whether you're busy, just an assumption that you'll drop everything and take care of it. After your 30 days of absence, the message becomes, "Do you have time this week to discuss a project? Let me know what works for you." Same manager, same company, same role, but a completely different version of you exists in their head now. You didn't get promoted. You didn't acquire some new skill that made you more valuable. You just stopped being the person who's always there to solve everyone else's problems. Situation 2 is personal relationships, and this one hits even harder for most people. You used to be the one who kept the connection alive. You texted first, you made the plans, you checked in to see how everyone was doing. You were the glue that held the friendship together. Then you pull back. The first week after you stop initiating, nothing really changes because the relationship was running on momentum. The second week, they might notice something's off, but they brush it off as you being busy. By week 3, something shifts in a way that can't be ignored anymore. The texts change in tone and urgency. Before, when you were always available, they'd send casual messages like, "What's up?" or "You've been quiet lately." After 30 days of your absence, the tone shifts to, "Hey, are you okay? I'm worried about you," or "Did I do something wrong? Feel like we haven't talked in forever." They're no longer messaging you out of habit or convenience. They're messaging you out of genuine concern that they've lost something valuable. Here's a real conversation I saw happen. Before the disappearance, a friend would text, "Wanna hang this weekend?" It was casual, low effort, with the expectation that you'd say yes because you always said yes. After the 30 days, the text became, "I really miss you. Feel like we haven't talked in forever. Want to catch up soon? I'm free whenever you are, just let me know." Same person, same friendship, but now they're putting in effort because they're no longer sure they have you, and that uncertainty makes them value the connection in a way they never did before. There's a moment when this clicked for me, and I'm not proud of how late it was. I used to think being reliable meant being available 24/7. I thought if I wasn't always there to respond, always there to help, always there to show up, people would forget about me and move on. So I made myself constantly available. I responded to every text immediately. I said yes to every invitation. I helped with every problem. I was the person everyone could count on. And then one day, I realized something that changed everything. Nobody was counting on me because I was valuable. They were counting on me because I was convenient. I decided to test it. I didn't make any announcements. I didn't tell anyone I was pulling back or taking space. I just stopped being the first to reach out, stopped responding immediately to every message, stopped filling every silence with my presence. For about 3 weeks, nothing changed, and I almost convinced myself that my absence didn't matter at all. Then, slowly, I started noticing something strange happening. People who used to treat me like I was always available suddenly started asking, "Do you have time?" before making requests. People who used to assume I'd help with anything suddenly started checking, "Are you willing to do this?" before asking. I wasn't any smarter than I was a month before. I wasn't any more skilled or successful or important. I was just no longer there to be used whenever someone needed something. Now, let me be very clear about something, because this is where people take this the wrong way and turn it into something toxic. This isn't a trick to make people desperate for your attention. This isn't about creating artificial scarcity to boost your ego or make yourself feel important. This isn't about playing games or manipulating people into chasing you. This is about stepping out of the role of being the person who has to keep everything running, the person who has to maintain every connection, the person who has to prove their worth through constant availability. You're not disappearing to get attention. You're disappearing because you no longer need to prove you exist. Think about it this way. When you're always around, people start to build their sense of stability and routine around your presence. They don't think about you as a separate person with your own life and priorities. They think with you as part of their environment. You become part of the background, part of the furniture, something that's just always there. And the background doesn't get respected, it doesn't get valued, it gets used. When you remove yourself from that background, they're forced to notice the space you took up, forced to recognize that you were doing something they took for granted. And that noticing, that moment of recognition, is when the repositioning happens in their mind. The person who was completely neutral about you suddenly starts wondering why you're not around anymore. The person who took you for granted suddenly realizes they were depending on something they never bothered to value or protect. The person who thought you had no options and nowhere else to be suddenly sees that maybe, just maybe, you do have other options, and you're choosing not to spend your time with them. None of this requires you to change who you are fundamentally. It doesn't require you to become someone you're not. It requires you to stop giving away your presence for free and start treating your time and attention as the valuable resources they actually are. Here's what most people get wrong about this whole concept. They think disappearing means ghosting people, cutting them off completely, being cold and distant and unreachable. That's not what this is about at all. Disappearing means recalibrating your availability to match your actual value, instead of giving it away to anyone who asks. It means not being the person who always texts first, who always says yes to every request, who always fills every awkward silence with noise. It means creating space where there used to be none, creating room for people to actually miss you and recognize what you bring to their life. And here's the paradox that surprises people every time. When you stop trying so hard to maintain the connection often gets stronger. Not because people suddenly like you more or find you more interesting, but because they respect you more. Respect doesn't come from consistency and constant availability. It comes from having boundaries and being willing to enforce them. And boundary requires absence, requires the willingness to be gone and see what happens. Let me give you another angle on this that most people never consider. When you're always present and always available, people can predict you perfectly. They know exactly how you'll respond to any situation, exactly what you'll say when they reach out, exactly how available you'll be when they need something. And prediction kills respect. The moment someone can predict your next move with perfect accuracy, they stop seeing you as a person with agency and autonomy. They stop seeing you as someone with options and choices. You become a function in their life, a tool they use when needed and forget about when not needed. The only way to break out of that perception is to become unpredictable, to do something they don't expect, to show them they don't actually know you as well as they thought. And the simplest form of unpredictability is absence, is not being where they expect you to be, not responding when they expect you to respond. Think about the people in your life who command real respect, not fear or intimidation, but genuine respect. What do they all have in common? They're selective about their presence. They don't respond to every message instantly. They don't show up to every event or gathering. They don't explain themselves constantly or justify their decisions to everyone. They exist on their own terms. And because of that, people treat their time, their attention, and their words differently. When they show up, it matters. When they respond, it means something. When they give their time, people recognize it as the gift it is. Now, I'm not saying you should become cold or distant or cut people out of your life without reason. I'm saying you should stop being the person who's always available for everyone except yourself. Because here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to say out loud. If you're always there for others, but never there for yourself, you're teaching them that you're not valuable. Value in any market, whether it's economics or human relationships, comes from scarcity. If you're abundant and always available, you're not valuable, you're convenient. And convenient things get used and discarded, not cherished and protected. When you disappear for 30 days, you're not running away from your responsibilities or being petty or playing games. You're reclaiming the space that was always yours, but you kept giving away to anyone who asked. You're teaching people that access to you is not a given, not something they can assume or take for granted. It's a choice, and more importantly, it's your choice to make. And the people who truly value you, who see you as more than just a convenient resource, they'll still be there when you come back. The people who only valued your availability and what you could do for them, they'll move on to the next convenient person. And that's not a loss. That's a filter showing you who was really in your corner all along. Let me tell you what happens in the mind of someone who realizes you're actually gone and not coming back immediately. At first, it's mild curiosity, just a passing thought of, I wonder what they're up to. Then it shifts to confusion as more time passes and you still haven't reached out. Then it becomes doubt, real doubt, about the relationship and their place in your life. Did I misread how close we were? Were we not as important to each other as I thought? Why am I bothered by this more than I expected to be? That last question is the key to everything. Why am I bothered by this? Because suddenly they're forced to confront the fact that they valued something they never protected or reciprocated. Your time, your energy, your consistent presence in their life. They assumed it was infinite, assumed you'd always be there, no matter how they treated you or how little they gave back. And now you're not there, and they're feeling the absence in a way they never expected. This is the exact moment when the power dynamic inverts completely. Before, you needed validation from them. You needed to know you mattered. You needed their response, their acknowledgement, their time and attention to feel secure in the relationship. Now the tables have turned, and they need to know they still matter to you. They need confirmation that they haven't been replaced or forgotten. They need your response to feel secure. That shift is everything. It's not about manipulation or playing games with people's emotions. It's about finally standing in a place where your value isn't determined by how much you give without receiving anything back, but by your willingness to withhold when the relationship is one-sided. Here's something nobody talks about in these conversations about boundaries and self-respect. The people who respect you the most are often the people you've said no to. Not because you were cruel or dismissive, but because you demonstrated that your yes has weight, that your time isn't free, that access to you is earned through mutual respect and reciprocity, not assumed as a default. When you disappear for 30 days, you're essentially saying no to everyone without saying a single word. And that silence, that absence, communicates more than any explanation or justification ever could. It says, I don't need to be here. I'm choosing to be here, and I can choose otherwise. So here's where we land after everything I've shared. If you choose to stop being the person who's always accessible, if you choose to stop keeping the rhythm and maintaining every relationship by yourself, if you choose to stop asking for recognition and validation from people who never give it freely, then stay here. This channel doesn't teach you to talk more or be more charismatic or say the right things to win people over. It teaches you to stand in the right place, to position yourself correctly, so you don't need to talk at all. Your presence speaks for itself because it's no longer guaranteed. 30 days, that's all it takes to change how people see you. Not because you became someone else entirely, not because you developed some new skill or achieved some impressive goal, but because you finally stopped being available to be used. And when you come back, if you choose to come back at all, you come back on your terms, not theirs. You come back as someone who's learned that your presence is a gift, not an obligation, and people need to treat it that way.